in the Crimson comic book series. In the beginning, God created heaven and earth, but earth was unformed and void. Darkness was upon the face of the deep until the Spirit of God moved upon the face of the waters. God said, "Let there be light," and there was light, and God saw that it was good. God divided light from darkness, calling it day and night. God said, "Let the waters be gathered in one place so that dry land may appear," and so it was. God called dry land earth, and he created dragons in the form of Chakidri to watch over the earth. On the fifth day, God said, "Let the earth bring forth every living creature," and so it was, and God saw that it was good. God would go on to create beings that would have dominion over all lower forms of life, but this God saw was not good. The beings he first created were called the Gigari, but they had no souls, and thus they would not worship God, and so they fell out of God's favor. God would go on to create humans in his image in order to have dominion over these lands. But another creature there watched as she was seethed in envy, for she was created to mate with the first human, but she was not of the same flesh. Her name was Laseth, and because of this rejection, she lost her heart and became jealous and bitter. Laseth and the Gigari were seemingly forgotten by God, and thus they fell under the sway of the evil one. Before earth, God had created angels to help him minister creation. All angels served God except one called Lucifer. Lucifer desired all for himself, and thus he sowed the seeds of discontent and won many angels to his side. And so it was that a war began that would shake heaven itself. But God saw what Lucifer had done, and God was displeased. God stopped the war and banished Lucifer from the heavens forever. And though he failed in heaven, Lucifer found himself on earth with the seeds of envy, and these seeds bore fruit among the soulless Gigari. Lucifer would basically start a second war and pit the Gigari against the Chakidri that remained close to God. The war was devastating, and many would perish on both sides of the conflict, but humankind would be spared by the love of God. God would create the tree of life, and he would bind the remaining Gigari and Chakidri to it. But one of the Gigari would survive, and he would become known as Echimus. But another dark being would also survive, and that was Laseth, and her aspect was bitter forever. The time would come when these two would eventually meet, and they would breed perfect terror. And all of creation would fear the monsters birthed by these two in secret for eons. But in present day, present time, at 2 a.m. in New York City, we find Alex Elder in a car full of his buddies having just came from a party, but Alex is seemingly distraught about something. But as the group are driving, they run into a group of bikers blocking the road that look like bad news. The guys would open all four doors of the car and decide to scatter. As Alex makes his way into the woods, he thinks to himself that it's a good thing he stuck to track even after his mood swings, as he got away clean. But in a split second, Alex Elder would be grabbed by this vampire who introduces herself as Puppet Rose of the Jelly Bats. Puppet Rose pins Alex to the ground as he's forced to watch his buddies be brutally ripped apart and mutilated as the Jelly Bats eat his friends. But Alex is not spared, and he's terrified as he yells for God to help him. But the vampires tell him that God can't hear him, and they let him know that he's dying alone. But as Alex is being eaten, a shadowy figure appears, and he tells the Jelly Bats to step away from the boy, as they'll do no more harm to him. The Jelly Bats decide to back off, as they believe the boy to be dead anyway. But as Echimus flies off with Alex, one of the vampires catches an arrow to the mouth by a mysterious woman clad in a red cloak. Now, Alex Elder would think back to an argument he had with his parents earlier that day. Alex was trying to convince them to let him go to a party, but his dad told him his grades were deplorable, and plus, the language he's using in front of his mother and sister is inexcusable, and he's told to go to his room. But instead of doing what his father asked him to, Alex storms out the building, refusing to let his parents hold him down, as his friends are waiting on them in the car. Now, Alex's girl Julia tries to calm him down, but Alex refuses, as he really doesn't know what he's going through right now. But Alex Elder would finally wake up in the darkness in what appears to be a rundown church, as he's surrounded by a flock of dead pigeons. Alex would hear a voice from the darkness that reveals himself to be his savior. This being introduces himself as Echimus, who is something beyond an ancient vampire. He is the last of the Gigori. As Echimus cast fire from his hands, he would reveal to Alex that before he rescued him, he was merely a shredded corpse on the ground. Echimus would go on to inform Alex that from this moment forward, their fates are intertwined. But Alex refuses to believe it as he runs away, as Alex does remember what happened to his friends. He tells Echimus that his friends were slaughtered by monsters, monsters like him. Echimus tries to explain to Alex that his friends are dead, but he lives, but not in the way that he would understand, for he's been changed forever as Alex Elder is now a vampire. Alex would open his mouth and he would see his fangs, but he refuses to believe it as he's still in the state of denial, and Alex runs for the exit. Echimus would inform Alex that there's no way he could survive out there right now, but Alex refuses, and as he opens the door, he's hit by a beam of sunlight and he starts burning. Alex begs for it to stop as Echimus quickly closes the door. Echimus would inform Alex that common beliefs about vampires are essentially true. You must avoid sunlight and ingest blood, however distasteful it is. Now, Alex tells Echimus he'll never drink blood, but Echimus tells him that's where he's wrong, as he must drink blood to survive. Plus, he's already drank blood as he drank the blood of those pigeons while he was in a state of shock. Alex refuses to believe he's a vampire and he tries to fight Echimus, but Echimus backhands Alex, and Alex starts whining like a little bitch and once again runs for the exit. Alex would run outside in the dead of night where he would run into another vampire named Joe. Now, Joe can recognize that Alex is a new vampire, but Alex is still in denial, so Joe tells him, "You must be one of them saber-tooth yuppies he's heard so much about them." Now, Joe would decide to hang with Alex a little bit to show him the ropes, and he explains to Alex that he has to drink blood or else he'll go into a feeding frenzy and his beast side will take over. Joe and Alex would run into some thugs in a park, and in a split second, Joe leaps into the air and takes them down and mutilates them and starts drinking their blood. Now, Alex is horrified and devastated by what he's seeing, and as he watches Joe feed on this gangster, Alex thinks back to the jelly bats feeding on his friends, and Alex runs away. Alex would run for what seems to be hours without even getting tired, but he stops as he sees a missing person poster of him. Alex decides to return to his old home, and as he climbs up the scaffold, he looks into the window of his home and he sees his little sister Pris. But Alex suddenly starts going into a feeding frenzy and his bestial side starts to take over. Now, Alex would drop off of the scaffold as, since he's going into a feeding frenzy, he refuses to be anywhere near his little sister. Alex would fall to the floor, practically starving to death, and to make matters worse, the sun is approaching. To be continued.